South African company performance has been in the spotlight recently, and by all accounts, South African companies are performing incredibly well. In terms of the quality of professional management, South Africa ranked 13th alongside countries like Denmark and Canada. In terms of private sector sophistication, we rank 34th alongside countries like Israel and Chile. Our risk-adjusted return on capital is the best in the world at 10%. And by all accounts, South African companies can go toe-to-toe with their global counterparts and deliver exceptional returns to their shareholders. Something else that's been in the spotlight recently is how South African companies remunerate their CEOs. And there's been a lot of questions from the unions trying to see how companies can justify the massive differences between executive remuneration and the remuneration of the average worker. There's also been noises in government that CEO pay might be capped. That being said, no one's looking at the fundamental basis for CEO remuneration, and the primary goal of companies is to deliver economic returns for those companies' shareholders. So the sole rational basis for CEO remuneration is the excess return that shareholders receive over and above the return that they'd receive in the market. And if we look at the returns that South African companies receive, we find that certain CEOs can completely justify their remuneration packages. In fact, some of South African CEOs are completely adequately paid, others are completely underpaid. By contrast, certain companies that underperform for their shareholders still pay relatively high salaries to their CEOs, and those CEOs are completely overpaid. A good example of this, the person who actually comes out at the top of the list as the most overpaid CEO in South Africa, is Glyn Lewis of Northern Platinum. And we know that the platinum sector has been plagued by problems, and as a result, Northern Platinum have delivered negative returns to their shareholders. What that means is that the shareholders are poorer at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year, yet Glyn Lewis still took home a salary in excess of 11 million rand, making him South Africa's most overpaid CEO. By contrast, Richard Friedland of Netcare delivered 936% excess shareholders' returns to his investors. And while he earned a very similar amount, 11.3 million rand, he is South Africa's most underpaid CEO, simply because relative to his peers, he's delivered such superior performance that he could justify a salary anywhere up to a level of 300 million rand. To put into context how spectacularly Netcare has performed and how spectacularly his management of the company has resulted in returns, Netcare generated in excess of 2 billion rands worth of earnings for its shareholders for only 1 billion rands of shareholders' fund invested.